to have this conversation. It's an important conversation. It's been the most top of mind topic in all of the hospitality restaurant groups that I'm a part of. And we need to get them as much information as possible in a short period of time. First, I want to tell everybody kind of the goals I have, the expectations I have for today, so you kind of know what you're going to get out of just this short conversation. Really what I want through all of this is to humanize the process. And so the fact that now we have Cher here, a real live person with a great smile here to communicate with us directly is important. We are an industry, a people built around human interaction. It's what we do every day, all day. And so the fact that a lot of that has been stripped away from us is challenging. And so we need the communication. We like bad news much more than no news. We deal with it day in and day out. So humanizing the process, the fact that we now have a lifeline directly to Cher and Daniel Chase, who's been amazing in helping and supporting through this as well, to continue to feed information into our ecosystem is what we have now. And so I'm grateful, really grateful for that. And I know it's going to be great talking with you because you're real. You're going to tell us things that we need to hear. You're going to tell us things that we may not like, but are important to hear. And even just in the small amount of time that we've talked, I want people to know this. Yesterday you met both of my kids and said happy birthday to my son. And like that means a lot to me, and it means a lot to our community. So I'm grateful again for that. I want to also set expectations of the process. So we're going to go through some high-level items. There are some things that are going to be very specific to Colorado because every state has different regulations and processes in place. However, a lot of these things will apply broadly because we do have audiences all across the country. And so I want you to understand the opportunities that you have to potentially create a different type of conversation with your Department of Labor and find your share. We all need our share in these moments. So thanks again for that. And then finally, to know where to look for more information about the process. And so we're going to feed you with some different links throughout this and continue to have information going into the system. All right, that's what we're going to do. Cher, tell us a little bit about your role within the Department of Labor and the goal that you personally and your team really have always, but especially in kind of these trying times we're in right now.
Yeah, so thanks, Jensen. Quick, by way of background, I've been in this role for over 13 years, always in a communications capacity. So I was with the Labor Department in Colorado pre-Great Recession, throughout the depths of the recession, and now to today. I expanded my role last year to Deputy Executive Director, which really just essentially means I'm able to have a lens into all of our divisions and programs. Unemployment insurance is the largest program within the Department of Labor in Colorado. We have 6 divisions. We have about 500 people working within the unemployment division specifically. So what I bring to today's conversation is some perspective on where we were pre-Great Recession, and recovery. Fast forwarding to really 3 short weeks ago, when we suddenly found ourselves alongside a lot of other states in a situation with unemployment we couldn't have even imagined we would be in. Just for some quick comparison about where we are today versus where we were during the recession. Colorado had longer to prepare for the depths of the recession. We were slower entering into the recession, partly because of the diversification of our industries in the state. A lot of entrepreneurs in the state, which all around just kind of buffered us from the immediate impacts of the recession in July of 2008. In the depths of the recession, the week with the highest number of unemployment insurance claims, we were at about 7,000 for a single week. We are doubling, sometimes tripling that number on a day. And so, you hear a lot of numbers thrown out by various states, and at some point it's kind of monopoly data or monopoly money, and that you just can't imagine that a system would go from pre-COVID-19 in February in Colorado, 2,000 claims a week, to what we experienced. I think we closed out last week with 80,000 claims in 1 week. So, that's just one data point that tells the story of the impact, not only to Colorado's unemployment insurance program and the impacts of COVID-19. Every state is struggling. Some of us operating on very old legacy technology systems. I heard yesterday that New Jersey was looking for COBOL programmers, which is a language I'm not sure anybody even knows anymore. But just to show the inflexibility of these systems, it's those systems operating off of old technology that now suddenly within the last 21 days are seeing unprecedented demand for information and access. And what we're doing, I think we've been very agile in responding to this new wave of claims volume and requests for support, but we certainly have a long way to go.
Yeah, I see. It's interesting. I hear a lot of, in everything, I hear a very polarizing thing. We find people going into their camps of kindness or animosity very quickly in times of struggle. And so I hear a lot of, it was amazing, it took me 20 minutes, or I've been on for 4 straight days. Every time I call a number, it goes directly to a busy line and the challenges. And so again, humanizing this process, the number one most important thing is that. And so the fact that we can get some information ongoing, because again, people in our industry, and maybe at large, but our industry especially, we just like face-to-face interaction. It's how we're built. And so again, appreciate that. And the numbers are just, it's unbelievable, the numbers. I mean, I think I heard 6.6 million nationally last week.
Right.
It's big. And so the fact that you guys are working hard out there, I want people to know there's going to be struggles. You're going to get upset. You're going to yell at your computer or whatever through this process. Yet there's people on the other side that are working diligently through somewhat arcane systems sometimes and finding a way forward. So I can appreciate that. Let's talk about some specifics. The number one thing that really people are asking is about eligibility. Mm-hmm. What am I eligible for? Partially employed, contract 1090 employees, tipped employees, seasonal workers, some of those. So give us the high level of who should be filing for employment and any potential pitfalls or any things that they need to be aware of.
Sure. Okay. So just for starters, just to quickly address the access into the system, we implemented a last name gating process, if you will, a couple of weeks ago. The week of the 16th, the first few days, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of that week, we saw a lot of activity, system overload, inability for tens of thousands of people to access one pathway into the online application system. After we implemented a last name gating process, we were able to triple the capacity of the online claims taking system. And so we're seeing some consistency in that. One of the issues we're hearing about, I'd say the two big issues, we unfortunately have a browser issue. So if you are attempting to file a claim from our website, coloradoui.gov, and you are unable to get through, maybe you see a system maintenance issue or another error issue. If you're not using Google Chrome, I would get out of your browser and launch it through Google Chrome. We are seeing some accessibility issues with browsers other than Chrome. Okay. The other issue people are seeing is if you aren't filing on your assigned date based on last name to the online system, you will not be able to move forward to the application. So again, some of these may seem like the site is crashed or there's server issues. There are some workarounds. And we're really trying to promote some of these workarounds because you don't know that you're in a wrong browser unless we tell you. And it's very frustrating, we know. And so we're trying to just update all of our guidance about that. One quick point about eligibility. So in a regular unemployment environment, in a healthy economy, we had record low unemployment right before COVID-19. We were at 2.5% unemployment for February in Colorado, historic low. And we have continued to see historic lows nationally, but especially in Colorado. And so you would file a claim. We would reach out to your employer to verify wages and eligibility. And then it would take about 4 to 6 weeks for you to receive your first benefit payment. What we're seeing now with eligibility, especially given the new CARES Act legislation, is really expansive eligibility for almost every worker profile you can think of. And that includes tipped workers and people in the hospitality industry. So if you have a reduction in hours or wages, you should file a claim. We look at the wages that you earned. Does that qualify you for unemployment? Again, that first series of unemployment, it's 26 weeks of benefits, and I'll speak to what the CARES Act provides in a minute. But generally, and these are very broad guidelines, but a reduction in hours or work or wages, then you should consider filing for unemployment.
Okay.
And I can speak to some of the provisions, even greater and expanded eligibility. One thing I'll say about leisure and hospitality and the restaurant industry, when our governor issued his executive order on closing the leisure and hospitality bar and restaurant industries, that comprises in Colorado, out of a workforce of 3.2 million, that's about 240,000 workers impacted, just if you're looking at leisure and hospitality, and within that, food service industry. So you can imagine, again, the potential impact to a system when theoretically you could have 240,000 people filing for unemployment at once, which is actually what we saw the week of March 16th, really till the end of March. Most of the impacts were first with ski resorts, then leisure and hospitality, food service, and now it's kind of permeating into almost every other sector.
So PPP, the CARES Act you mentioned, then PPP, the Paycheck Protection Plan. I'm learning all these acronyms. Like all of a sudden, I'm an expert at acronyms.
It's like a good government bureaucrat. That's what you sound like.
All of a sudden, it's strange how our vernacular changes, how our language changes. All of a sudden, terms like SBA, PPP, EIDL, social distancing are just, well, yeah, of course we've been using these words forever and always, yet we haven't. We're just trying to find some kind of equilibrium in the chaos. So it's fascinating. I just throw that out there like I know what I'm talking about. I don't. PPP has been major. We're talking about a lot on the show this week because that's going to have an impact on the businesses as well as the individuals, as you know. So if I am potentially getting back to work because of PPP, but say at a reduced rate or lessened hours or a completely different role, how is that going to affect me in this process?
If you are not returning to your full-time work, whatever that means, hours, wages, you should file an unemployment claim. We are still trying to determine now some of these, without getting too technical, are programs administered separately from our unemployment insurance program. So you may have heard about the $1,200 a week stimulus for some workers. That is not something that comes through our department. So in an ideal world, it would be one pot of money, and you would kind of determine who gets what, and it would come in one check or direct deposit. Unfortunately, even the PPP program is run separately from the Labor Department. But I actually heard from an employer today who owns a house cleaning company who has been holding off on letting her workers, furloughing her workers, because she was hopeful she would get accepted for some of the PPP funding. And so she's really trying to avoid a layoff if she can, but also realizing that system is also overwhelmed with the small business loans. At some point you just need to kind of fish or cut bait and make a decision. And I think her point is, now, if I let my workers go or furlough them, what will they be eligible for? How do they navigate the process? Will they be eligible for, you've heard about the $600 a week of unemployment. So I would say quickly about if your employer calls you back to return to work, maybe not at full time. If you've already filed for unemployment, you just need to report those hours worked or wages earned. That's one thing to keep in mind, because that offsets your benefit amount. So every state has a different base wage, if you will. Every state has a different average weekly benefit amount. Colorado, it's around $450. So you would get a portion of that based on what wages you're bringing in from other income. And
Gotcha.
so if you've been furloughed, had a reduction in worker hours, are returning to work because your employer was able to get some assistance, you can keep that claim open, but you need to report those wages and those hours earned.
Gotcha. Are you getting any direction on who is eligible for the $1,200? I know it's coming from a different department, but is anything coming across your desk, since it does kind of conflate with some of the work that you're doing?
Not yet, because it's through a separate part of the legislation. It doesn't really interface with our system. I will just tell you that receiving that $1,200 a week, I think it's or a month. Oh, it's per person. Does not impact. It does not impact your $600 a week that you would receive within the CARES Act provisions. So, you would
let's unpack that for a second. So $450, let's say in Colorado, and this could be different across the country. And then there's the CARES Act, which nationally is looking to infuse another $600 a week into people's bank accounts, right? Those work together, right? So if I get $600, I am then not disqualified from the potential, say, $450 that I'm eligible as a regular unemployed person. Is that correct?
That's exactly right. And our hope is that, well, first of all, this $600 a week will be retroactive to March 29th. So the other thing we'd like to remind folks of, we are not yet able to process that $600 a week because, again, we have to reprogram on the back end of the systems. We also have to receive the money from the federal government. Anything within the CARES Act, so anything directly related to COVID-19, staying home to care for a child who's out of school, being quarantined because you tested positive, caring for a family member. There are 10 or 11 provisions within this new legislation that allows you to now be eligible on top of the $600 a week. So that's correct. You would get your weekly benefit amount. You would get $600 a week on top of that. And our hope is that this is seamless to the claimant. It's a benefit amount added on, and they don't need to take any additional action except every other week certify that they're still out of work and in need of unemployment.
Okay. And is there a cap on the time or the dollar amount of this additional monies of the $600 from the CARES Act?
Yeah, it's a great question. So the funds expire July 31st of this year. Haven't received any guidance as to whether they may consider extending that after July. Again, claims will be backdated to March 29th for that $600. The other thing to keep in mind, let's take a gig worker or self-employed as an example. Again, we're not yet able to accept those claims because we have to reprogram their systems to know how much to pay from what pot of money, for what duration, for what benefit amount. But those gig worker and self-employed claims will be backdated to February 4th, I believe, first week of February. So when we get these claims into the system from this newly eligible group of workers, they will be receiving a pretty significant benefit amount on their first benefit payment.
Because it's all the way back to February 4th.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I mean, that's good news, but again, it's not as good as having money in hand right now, and we realize that.
Yeah, so that is really a fundamental question, and in a couple different places that I'm looking at right now, that's being asked, is what is potentially a realistic expectation of timeline? How backed up? If I filed on March 26th, what is a realistic expectation of when I can get money in the bank? And let's maybe touch on that. And then let's reverse engineer back to what the actual steps are, because I want to talk about this elusive PIN a little bit.
Yes, the lovely PIN. So we actually started paying benefits on claims filed the week of the 16th last week. So on Sunday, we received over 20,000 payment requests. And those were payment requests on some of them, a large portion of them, on claims filed from the 16th on.
Okay.
So people are seeing those benefits, especially from, again, we started with the ski industry and then some of the hospitality workers that were impacted the week of the 16th. But throwing a little bit of a wrench in there, as you mentioned, is this PIN issue. So we implemented actually physical mailing PIN process when we actually toward the end of the Great Recession. And it's mailed for some security issues. It's mailed because what we do, we take all the claims, we push those in batch at the end of the night. Those generate a PIN. The PIN gets printed, mailed, and sent to the claimant within a couple of days. That's been the workflow for this. And when you have, 2,000 claims a week, it works fairly smoothly.
Sure.
When you have 80,000 claims a week, that process cannot be automated, just turnkey. There's some work that we need to do. And what we were discovering is, let's say you take 80,000 claims last week, you have to not every 80,000, but you have to manually in batch send those out to generate this PIN. And so last week, what we looked at, what's a workaround to get the PIN? The PIN lets you access your claim online. It's what you need to request benefit payment every 2 weeks. And so what we're seeing is 80,000 claims on top of 60,000 the week before, and you have this logjam of over 100,000 claims that now need to go through that manual process. So we did, you may have heard folks say they received a voicemail giving them their PIN. That is legit. That is a call campaign initiated by our department to get the PINs to folks quicker. Let me just say, though, we would never ask you for any personal identifying information. We would never ask you to say your PIN to us. We would never ask you for any banking information. So if it seems odd that somebody would be pushing a little bit further into some PII, they probably are, and do not give out any information. And we're putting out some fraud alerts on that right now, actually.
Okay, I have a link, and we'll get some more links to these very specific pages on the site, because it can be cumbersome to look through the entire .gov and then the unemployment and all that. So we will circle back and count on me and Cher to get you guys as much information very specific to these. This PIN was interesting, and the voicemail did come up several times. And I'm glad to hear that it is not a scam, at least that this is happening to make this move quicker. And also to warn people that this is exactly the kind of new implementation that scams will come out around, because it's the exact kind of bait that scammers are looking for. So be diligent. Do not give out any personal information through that conduit. You should be getting a voicemail. You could be getting a voicemail through that process, and then follow up then in the mail as well, or this is replacing mail.
That's replacing, and we're also working on an email protocol also. So it will either be an outbound call campaign, a robocall like folks got, or an email. The other thing to keep in mind is we don't require you provide an email to us, but it's a really good idea. The only time you have to give us an email is if you choose to receive all your communication electronically from the department. Otherwise, you might still be receiving regular mail from us, including your PIN. So while it's optional, we would encourage people to give us an email address. It's the best way to receive communication from us. A great example, I personally wrote an email to 56,000 people last week, put it into our email blast system, and hit send. And so without that email address, you're just limiting the immediate communication that we can send out to you, to just say, you have a confirmed claim, we're working on it, you'll get your PIN soon. I know that's not specific. I know it's not detailed enough for every person, but we're trying the best we can to get information out there, and an email is a great way to get information from us.
Okay, so putting your accurate phone number and email more important than ever in this moment, and giving that information directly. Now, this is asked quite a bit as well. Is there a best phone number and or email for people who are in the claimant services side of it now, needing to find out because they don't have the PIN, so they don't have access to their online account? They're kind of in limbo a little bit. Maybe speak to that audience, because there's a big group in there that are really concerned right now and just don't know what to think. And every day there's that level of stress. So if they can know that, look, this is the number, and here's the challenge you're going to face, and here's how long it's going to take. Again, our industry, we somehow thrive on bad news. We figure shit out. Like, that's what we do. It's in our DNA. And so I want to give them the opportunity to at least hear some bad news rather than no news.
Well, I guess let's start with the bad news. The bad news is last Monday we had 240,000 attempts to call our call center. So that would have been somebody who got a busy signal, who sat in the queue on hold, who got through successfully. Before COVID-19, we saw maybe 500 attempts in a day. Again,
how many people are working that system? The phone lines.
So good question. Before COVID-19, we had about 70. Now we have almost 250. So we've added those staff just in the last 2 weeks. Now, keep in mind, these folks need to be trained on the system. We've repurposed staff from other parts of the division, but we've also hired, I think at last count, over 90 temps to come in. And essentially what they're doing is reviewing our FAQs on our website. And it seems odd that you would sit on hold to talk to somebody, and then that person's just referring to the FAQs, but maybe they know where the answer is online. So that speaks to really trying to review and refine our online tools and make sure that the information is clear and easy to understand. We're implementing a chatbot functionality where you can actually type in a question and it will navigate to that part of the FAQs on the site that answers your question. So in terms of another email address, last thing to mention, we're also looking at contracting out some additional call center support toward the end of this week.
Let's hover on that for a second, because right away when you're saying that, it's like, are you hiring? Because we have some of the best at hospitality and customer service anywhere you're going to find is people in the hospitality industry. So putting that charisma to work for you might be the best thing ever. And then we also have another humanizing of the process within our industry. So give us that connective tissue. How do we get connected to that? And then the general information as well.
Okay, so I know we will continue to add staff to support functions like the call center. I'm not sure when, because I think we just did bring that additional 90 on board. The State of Colorado Jobs Board, and I don't have the URL off the top of my head, but just in a quick Google search, it'd be State of Colorado Jobs. And then you would just search within Department of Labor that would have all of our job announcements there. We're also working on, so realizing that a lot of your viewers have an intent to return to work and will be returning to work at some point. Perhaps they're looking at just part-time supplements to their income. We're looking at promoting location-neutral job opportunities through the state's job board. So this would be things that you can do remotely that could be temporary or reduced hours, but get some additional income. And again, location neutral, so you don't need to travel, you don't need to leave your house, which most of us can't right now anyway. And so we're hoping to roll that out next week, actually, which would identify employers who have these location neutral jobs and then workers who are interested in some part-time work. So,
okay, I'll see if I can track down some of that as far as links to jobs as those come available. And then directly getting connected, phone number locally to get on the line with somebody, or an email address. What are those points of entry for contact?
So you're kind of getting the inside scoop here on the email address question, because I have not yet publicly put this out there either. But if you want to send an email to CDLE_UI at state.co.us. This is an email account I just stood up yesterday. And we're staffing with a group of volunteers from the department. We did not have a general mailbox in place. And so we're trying to just test the waters and see if we can handle the volume and be responsive to the inquiries coming into that. Again, the main call center number is the 303-318-9100. I'm sorry, 9,000. 303-318-9000. That's likely where everybody is calling and either getting a busy signal or having to sit on hold. And again, that's not ideal for anyone. It's frustrating. You can certainly send an email to that email account. We're also tracking the top 5 reasons people are calling into the call center and trying to more proactively put the answers to those questions out, the PIN question being one of them.
Okay. the pin question, man, it's like where's Waldo? All of a sudden, it became this. It's so memeable. It's crazy right now in what's happening. The phone number. I've heard a lot of horror stories of I've called 240 times and I've gotten a busy signal. I mean, again, there's not a good answer. But do you recommend hang up, call, hang up, call, hang up, call till you get through? Are there certain times of the day where traffic is lower? Like anything?
Yeah. So what we're asking people to do is try to only call like it is with our online application system. We're trying to implement a last name gating system. The whole goal here is to minimize the pressure of tens of thousands of people getting into one system at a time. And so the call center gating system is voluntary now.
Okay.
I'm not sure we can't force that protocol in place now, but it's just if your claim corresponds with this is when you can file a claim based on last name, we're using that same protocol for calling into the call center.
Okay. What are the actual hours of the call center?
I'm sorry.
What are the actual hours of the call center?
7:30 to 4:30. We are, I believe, starting this week. We tested Saturday hours last week, and so we'll continue to do that this weekend. It used to be we could say
30 to 4:30 on the weekend too.
I'd have to get back with you on that one because this is something new. Now that we're trying to staff up. Expand access, and that would include a Saturday opportunity. But I can follow up with you on the hours, the Saturday hours.
Okay, we got Monday through Friday in there, so people want this phone number and this information really badly. So I appreciate you giving that to us. Okay, a couple little questions that I also had. Employer responsibility in the process. So typically, employers are at their place of business, checking the mail. They get a claim for unemployment. They either are looking to then fight it or dispute it, and then they're looking to verify that. Most of them are not at work right now. Is it still the requirement that the employer verify that employment of that claimant to get that back in the process and mail that in?
Right. So I would say we have the ability to do wage verification separate from what the employer responds with. However, tipped workers are a little bit different there, and that we can go into our database and verify all tipped wages for tipped workers. So the lack of response from an employer won't delay the benefit payment. And we are working on a way to actually have those employers proactively report to us when they had a reduction in workforce, and that can help with some of that claims processing. We are also, I'm sending out an email probably today to over 100,000 employers in Colorado with a fact sheet that we're asking for them to share with their workers, because what we're hearing from employers is, and it's natural. An employee, you're going to go to your HR person or your manager or your employer about related questions if you can't get through to our system. And so we're hoping if we put the information in the hands of the employers, they know where the workers are, they know how to get the information out, and it hopefully will address a lot of the questions that we're seeing coming in, like the PIN.
Okay. And then how can employers push themselves or your department to take more responsibility for that? Because there's definitely a lot of that where either employers are doing a lot and they're contacting and their payroll company and the Department of Labor, and they have, frequently asked questions of their own, and they're walking people through the process, whatever that might be, or people feel completely abandoned right now and feel like they're so on their own, they don't know what to do. In our industry, we can always get a job pretty quickly. There's so much happening in our industry that a lot of times you lose a job, you leave a job, 2 days later, there's 4 more jobs for you. And so, unemployment is kind of alien to us in that way. So what can the employers do a little bit to help us along in this process?
Well, they certainly can call us and let us know they're planning a large workforce reduction. We also have a program, every state has it. It's a WARN filing, WARN. This is anytime an employer is planning a reduction in workforce. they would let us know, preferably by email, because accessing and processing mail is a challenge. But let's give one example. A very large hotel in Colorado recently let 1,200 workers go, furloughed those workers. And so we were able to engage with that company before 1,200 people had to hit our system and file for benefits. And it works out better for everyone if the employers can proactively share that information with us, and also share our information with their workers. So again, on our kind of redesigned website, we redesigned our landing page at coloradoui.gov last week. There is actually a button just for employers that can walk them through some of these opportunities to enhance communication.
Okay, so that them contacting you, are they having to call the same number? Is it the same pipeline for that?
No, it's a different group who, unfortunately, again, keep in mind that team cannot answer claims related questions. They only have access to the employer side of the house, and it's a different team. It's a different number. It's 303-318-9100 for employers only. Again, if you are needing help with your claim, unfortunately, they're just going to transfer you to that other number, which is just being overwhelmed.
303-318, what's the last four?
9100, 9100.
9100 for employers. All right, we have a lot of employers as part of our audience, so I definitely want to get them that information, because they also, many of them are struggling to figure out a way to lead their teams in this time of struggle. So I appreciate that as well. Okay, so here's what's going to happen next, people, is I'm going to work these fingers to try and get you linked as many of these places that we just talked about. I so much chicken scratch on here, but I'm going to figure it out. Continue to hustle for you guys. Cher and I will follow up and be in communications to continue to try to get as real-time information. So know that you have me as a conduit, and Cher and Daniel have been amazing, and I'm, again, grateful for that. So we will get all of the information that we currently have, and then as more information comes about, and especially, again, with timelines and expectations and expanding weekend hours for the call center, things like that, we'll stay in touch on that. So any last thoughts that you have? Don't want to cut you off if you had anything else, but
yeah, thank you. No, just I years and years ago, I was in the industry. I know what it's like working in the service side of things and customer service, and you're there because you like engaging with people. You like the environment. I actually managed a restaurant in downtown Denver before Coors Field was even a thought. So I have a long history.
There.
I know, don't tell anybody. But so I get it. I get both the sometimes unpredictable nature of the industry. Your wages are paying your bills just like an admin or somebody working on the professional business services side of the house, and you need those wages to pay your bills. And I don't think that anybody in our department takes lightly the fact that everybody is struggling. And you're frustrated, and we feel the frustration. I literally had 10 emails to my work email address just before 9 o'clock this morning from just people who found my name and info and need help. And we're doing the best we can to be responsive to those needs. I hope that in the next week or so, we can start taking these claims for the new CARES Act, that people will start to get that $600 a week. But it doesn't fall on deaf ears that these are really, really hard times.
Yeah, I really appreciate this, Cher. I'm happy that now there is a name and a face on the Department of Labor, because it's so important to us in the hospitality industry, as human interaction is our fuel. It's what feeds us. And so I know that that's been maybe the biggest struggle in knowing and understanding the expectations and just knowing anything. Again, we thrive on bad news. No news is a dangerous thing in our world. And so that is greatly appreciated. I know everybody watching and listening really appreciates the fact that, you're speaking on your department's behalf thoughtfully about the hard work that you and hundreds of other people are doing. So we truly appreciate that. And we will continue this dialogue as we go forward. So thank you very much for being on the show.
Thank you so much. Thanks for the opportunity.
All right. Have a great day.
Thanks, Jensen. You too. Bye-bye.
All right. I hope that was helpful. I think Cher's attitude through all this is really great. This is such a challenging and trying time for everybody. And I know we have a lot of pessimism and cynicism towards, the unemployment or anything. We just have that in us, and I understand it. I have a lot of empathy for both sides of the equation right now because everybody is getting their heads kicked in. I mean, everybody is. And so I'm just, again, grateful for the fact that we now have a lifeline, a direct line to somebody in the Colorado Department of Labor, somebody who can also definitely, a lot of the things she was saying, speak more broadly to navigating the system and understanding the expectations as a whole nationally, because I know a lot of you watching from around the country. And so I want to be understanding that as well. And I definitely, just Denver being my backyard, wanted to make sure that we had some very practical, specific information for our small little community here. If you are anywhere across the country and need this kind of conversation with very specific details for phone numbers and emails for your market, please do not hesitate to reach out to me, and I'll figure out a way. Maybe Cher has contemporaries across the country that she can connect us with so that we can have this conversation from market to market, because we're all dealing with the same issues right now, the same struggles, feeling isolated in this process. And I want to do whatever I can from my tiny little office here with kids screaming downstairs that I can to support this effort, because we all really need it. And it's time for our hospitality to be repaid to us in full, even if it's just some lines of communication until we get some actual money in our pockets. Please comment and continue to comment on this video as you guys watch. I will stay in the comments with information. I will be circling back and putting as much information into the comments on the main thread of this on the Best Served Podcast Facebook page. So I know that there's watch parties and people watching in different groups around Facebook. I'm going to try and aggregate all that information into one place. So go to the Best Served Podcast Facebook page, get into this live video with Cher Haavid, and there will be links and information ongoing as new hours, new information come out, because everything is happening day by day, hour by hour, as we're trying to figure this shit out. So I'm going to keep hustling for you guys, and man, I hope it brings value to at least one person, one human in hospitality. If it does, it is worth it. I will continue to do it. I don't know if you guys noticed who's been watching the show, but I shaved for the first time throughout all this, did up my hair, which is getting entirely out of control. And I put on a collared shirt because I don't know, I want to take this seriously. This was an important conversation. And the first time I've had to really interview somebody. So I hope it brought some value. And I'm babbling and rambling now, but I really appreciate you guys. Have an amazing day. Please do something kind for somebody. Have something good to say about somebody. Eat something delicious today. I know that I will.